Hi, my name is Rebecca Thomas, and I am having a conversation today with Christy, who had the distinction of being my very first customer for Not Another Diet. And I know, and she's special in a whole variety of ways, but always will be that to me. The first person who believed in what I was doing and signed on, and sort of the rest is history now. But I can tell you, when I was conceiving of this program, I was so nervous that no one would buy in, no one would want to do it. It was just so different. I didn't have an eating plan and I wasn't promising anything quick. And it was basically sort of the opposite of diet language in every way, mostly because I actually care about people's long-term success. And so I'm just not going to say things that I think are nonsense. Anyway, Christy was a total delight throughout the program, so thoughtful, so honest. And I thought it would be really fun for people to enjoy a conversation between us. So I want to introduce Christy. And Christy, I would like to hear about you. I'd love to know if you feel comfortable, how old you are, your profession, anything that people can give a little context to, because I think all of that makes a big difference in the way that we approach weight loss post 40. And also, if you want to go into a little bit about your history before you came to NAD. So without further ado, the wonderful, beautiful Christy.
Thank you. It's a nice introduction. So I turned 60 years old. My 60-year-old birthday was a pandemic birthday, which means I did nothing, which was fine. I am an oncology nurse, so I actually work in a very busy clinic at the University of Washington Medical Center, and I help take care of women who have reproductive cancers. So it's a stressful job. It's a good job. I work with a great group of people, great physicians, fabulous nurses and clinical support. It's just a really great place to work. I have been very athletic my whole life. I was the classic tomboy of the 60s and 70s. I was a gymnast. I rode horses. I played more traditional sports. And I was always just that kind of muscly, thick little girl, actually pretty lean until I hit puberty. And then I was curvier than the other girls. And it brought a lot of unwanted attention. So some of that unwanted attention came from other girls, because as we all know, young girls are terrified and they can be mean. I feel bad for those girls who were mean to me, because I don't think they were happy either. But they were awful. And I'm a sensitive little soul. I am just a marshmallow. And they're like sharks. They can smell it. So I had a lot of unhappiness during that period, and I started turning more to eating. My mother died when I was 10. My whole world shifted. I went to live with my grandmother and lived with her in an area that wasn't like where I had lived before. So I gave up my horse. I wasn't out running around. I didn't have a bunch of kids in the neighborhood to play with. It was back, during a time when people lived in one place and they lived there until they either died or went to the nursing home. People didn't size up or down. They just stayed where they were. And so these were all older people. There were almost no kids in my neighborhood. And so I turned more to food, and then puberty hit, and I was uncomfortable with curves, and I was uncomfortable with all of that. And I ate to self-soothe, and that made that part of it work. It worked in the short term. Self-soothing works great, and for the 30 minutes after you eat. But then that just set up a back and forth through my whole life of trying to manage my food intake. And of course, all my family members felt like they needed to manage my food intake. And then there were diets that I went on and they thought they needed to manage my, there was always somebody, and I literally never knew how to eat. I didn't know when I was hungry. I didn't know when I was full. I ate too much or not enough. I could go days without eating a bite, but I was just completely not in touch with my own needs as far as food and nutrition. Um, I have successfully managed to lose weight in the past, uh, but it's always been temporary, as is often the case. And so
Mhm.
then once I got good, then it was time to go out and play. And you can't go out and play, this was how I sort of broached it. I couldn't go out and play and have fun without eating all of the delicious foods that other people ate or drinking or all the things, late night eating, all that kind of stuff that is kind of what our social culture teaches us is fun. That's what we see. Like, oh, they're having a great time, so I have to do that too. Um, and then and then the weight would creep back up, and then just it was just a never ending cycle. And I really had kind of given up, and I don't even mean that in a bad way. I just decided, well, I'm just going to be one of those people who can't lose weight. That's just me. And then I started reading some of your articles last fall, and I thought, oh, this sounds kind of interesting. This maybe I could do some of this, maybe I could stick my toe in, because I wasn't willing to go on a diet. I just wasn't willing to do that anymore. Thinking about going on a diet makes me overeat. And like my brain and my fat, they both love me and they want me to stay alive. And when I start thinking about going on a diet, they are like, "Oh no, sister, we are not going through that again. You're not going to starve us to
Well,
death."
diets are, I think those cycles that you're talking about that I've been on too, so we have we have so much in common, but those cycles of, we think of success as losing weight and failure as gaining it back. But I don't know if you feel this way, but I feel like over time, uh, pre not another diet, right? Uh, that I think of them as actually being on the same continuum.
Yeah.
You still don't understand your body,
Right.
even at the smaller size. You're just willing to endure a period of deprivation to get there, but then you can't maintain it because all the rest of your life essentially still looks the same.
Yeah.
Does that resonate with you at this point?
Yeah. I think the thing that you said that I read in one of your articles that just it was like the heavens opened up and the choir sang, was when you said, "Don't do anything that you can't do for the rest of your life." Right?
It's a good reframe. Yep.
That was such an epiphany, such a moment for me, because I thought, "Oh, okay. Yeah, that totally makes sense." Like, it doesn't do me any good to go on some kind of weird starvation diet or some diet that I don't like. Doesn't even matter if it's a starvation diet. It could be the best diet in the world. If I hate it, I'm not going to do it for the rest of my life. So I had to find the things that I could do, and I had to really look at what I wanted, um, and be willing to commit to that, and know that I could just, this is how you're going to have to live your life. I'm so incredibly fortunate that my health is excellent. I have like literally no health problems, nothing. And there are people who have to do all kinds of things to deal with health issues. And so if I can't have a donut every time I want one, that's okay. like we all have to make some small sacrifices. And that doesn't mean I can never have a donut. It just means I can't have a donut every time I had a bad day. And a donut
Right.
feels like it would be a good idea.
Right. Although I will say, for my own part, I haven't had a donut in years. Not that I never have treats, but that one particularly messes me up. But what it sounds like is that you I agree. I love the reframe, by the way, of anything you can't do for the rest of your life. And the reason I say it like that is because I think it forces you to snap out of magical thinking. Like
Yeah.
you have to stop. It just forces you. I think I wrote that in connection with the keto diet. I always pronounce it wrong. Keto. I don't know. It's all nonsense to me, to tell you the truth. But and it's not nonsense, I guess, for maybe for epileptic children or whatever. I don't know. But like for a way to live, it just makes no sense to me.
Yeah.
And I had a friend who was going on that diet, and I had lost the weight by then and kept it off for many years. So it wasn't really an issue for me, but I was thinking, like, what could I say to her? You know, what could I say to my friend to get her to understand that she's not doing something good for herself? And I know the marketing is so good. And so I came up with that phrase as a way to try to pierce through the nonsense for a second. But what I love about it is that it forces you back into your day, back into your life, back into the actual life that you have, not the future
Yeah.
perfect life that is somehow filled
Right.
with excess time to exercise and no temptations and no social occasions. You know what I mean? Like, what is
Yeah.
your actual life and who you are? I don't know if this is true for you. I'm an active person also, although you might be a little more active than me, but I don't know. I do mountain biking now, so who knows? But my history is a little bit different from yours in that I didn't ever think of myself as an active person as a young woman. So I think you had me beat there, but like, I see people doing these boot camps outside because of COVID, right? And I always think like, ugh, I would never. Now, if somebody loves doing that, I would never talk them out of it either. If you
Right.
love it, go do it. That's totally cool. That's really part of another diet approach. Absolutely. But I think most people don't love it. I think most people think of that as a way into, somehow that's a gateway into being a fit and healthy person. Like if you do the diet, if you do the calorie app counting, if you do the boot camps, that's going to transport you into being a fit and healthy weight person. And
Right.
so what I want to know from you, Christy, is after going through reading my stuff and going through the program, do you still think that? And my guess is not, but like, how would you respond to someone who still was clinging to these ideas?
Yeah, I definitely do not think that. So, for me, it was looking at those little things, those little habits. And so, I had to just start watching myself. Like, do you really need that snack? Do you, the little things that like you can that are pretty clear, right? That's pretty clear that you do not need a handful of corn chips at 8 o'clock at night. Nobody needs that. You may want it, and maybe sometimes you even have it, okay, but you have to, like, see what you're doing. You have to really see yourself. Um, so and sometimes it's not pretty. Sometimes you're like, I was that person who, ate way beyond fullness to the point of discomfort because there was always that little voice in the back of my head telling me that I might never get this delicious thing again. So I had to turn some of that around. I had to turn that ideology around, and I had to see what I was doing to undermine my own health, and to undermine my goals as far as being at a weight where I was comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
I know you often will say, like, you're not a skinny person. I'm not skinny. I don't want to be skinny, but I do want to be healthier. In fact, a patient the other day said, "Oh my God, you look so great." She said, "Dare I say it? You're skinny." And I said, "First of all, I know you think that's a compliment, but I'm not. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
skinny. I'm not trying to
Mm-hmm.
be skinny.
Right.
The waif look is just that's not me. It wasn't ever in my whole life." I said, "What I want is to look like those CrossFit women. I want to look. I want to look like the person in the bar who you want to come stand next to when the fight breaks out. I
I
don't want
love
to look
it.
like
That's
the
so
person who
good.
needs protection."
That's
right?
right. That's right. That's right. And I love that you've elevated your goals, by the way. Like when I met you, that was not where you were. Where you were was and correct me if I'm wrong, but what struck me, and I had great empathy for you, and honestly, like it made me want to work really hard, to be of help. Was a person in pain. You struck me as someone who was very bright, but had this lifetime of being slogged around by diet culture, by programming from childhood, which, by the way, we share. I was going to make a comment about your talking about adolescence. I really think a lot of us, uh, the beginning of the abuse starts when our bodies change. And what's really awful, I think, about that time is that you are so tender,
Oh,
and everything shows on you. You cannot put your body away, right? You cannot put your body away. And I still am curvy. And I don't mean curvy in an old fashioned, like in a sense of like being overweight. I'm not overweight, but I am curvy. I am a curvy woman. And I was a curvy woman at 13.
me too.
And there was nothing I could do to put my curviness away. And it's on, what I mean by that is that it's on display. And the world has a big reaction to that. Men behave inappropriately.
Oh, so much.
Oh my God, horrifying, right?
Yeah.
And to 13-year-old girls, but that's a different subject. But in my case, and I think this goes to, seriously, we could talk all day about that one. In my case, and I think it goes to the opinions that families start having about your body. And my mom was particularly triggered by my changing body and very worried about me getting fat to the point of being insane about it. And when we get programming like that, it lasts a long time. And I want you to speak to that, but I also, took pains in the program to actually help you all with self-talk and deprogramming. Like I put it in front of you in a pretty clear way, because I know that you cannot make lasting progress unless you think through some of these issues. And what struck me about you going through the program is that you did the work. You full stop did the work. You read the modules, you journaled about it, you walked about it, you cried about it, you thought about it. And so I want to hear about that process, because I think as important as food is, as important as science is, all those things are tremendously important. But if you don't deal with the inner roiling, the past traumas and all of that, if you don't even bother to look at them, they will continue to, my theory anyway, they will continue to upend you no matter what happens, no matter how good your food choices are for a little while, right?
Yeah.
So talk to me about that.
Yeah, so I did do all those things, and there were times when oh, it was unpleasant. Like there were things that I had to really dig down and look at about why I treated myself the way I did. And I didn't realize it. It wasn't like, I don't have the mean voice in my head in such a way that I think, I'm listening to it all the time, but it's there. And so I've always been a lousy journal keeper. I have always
Mm.
wanted to be a person who writes in her journal, and I have never done it. But I have done it over the last 5 months. I have really, uh, some days it's deep stuff where I get in there and think about what happened when I was 12 or 13, and other days it's I'm too tired to write anything, but I had a good day. And like literally just to put something in there because it keeps me in touch. It keeps me honest with myself so that if things happen, uh I'll tell you a quick funny story. I was at REI. One of the things you make us do the 10 wants or the 10 whys. And one of the things that I wanted was to be able to go into a store and not have to shop in the plus size section. Thank God that there is so much more plus size clothing out there for women who need it,
Yeah.
especially active stuff, because
Yes.
that was not a thing even 10 years ago. Um, but I'm 5'4". I wanted to be able to wear regular size clothing. So I was so excited. I go to REI and it's COVID. So everything's you go up there and they take your number and they text you when it's your turn to come in. So as I'm standing there, there's again this young guy, he's probably 20 something. And there was a cute little dress on the rack. And I said, "Oh my God, that's adorable. Where is that in the store?" And he said, "Oh, this is something that somebody brought back. It's not anything we even carry anymore." And I said, "Oh, shoot, too bad." I said, "What size is it?" And he said, "It's a small." And I said, "Oh, yeah, I don't wear a small." And he said, "I know." And then he brought me, he did not even, I'm sure he didn't even think about how that might, who struggles with weight. And the thing that was, it was so hilarious. I got into the dressing room and I had to sit down and I laughed until I cried. I literally, it was so hilarious because it didn't upset me at all. It didn't trigger anything. It didn't bring up any shame. I didn't blush, nothing. It was just hilarious that that young little skinny punk thought nothing more than to say, "I know." Okay. It was just funny. I think in that moment I thought, okay, maybe some of that hot button stuff really has kind of dissipated. Maybe I really have managed to work through some of that because it just didn't set off any bells and whistles. It didn't set off any alarms. It was funny. It was so funny.
I'm
So,
super proud of you. I think that's a super, I mean, if I think if that had met you, if that had happened when I met you, our
oh
first
gosh, I
Zoom
would have been
call,
in tears.
it would
Not
have wounded
funny.
you. It would
Yeah,
have wounded
it would
you,
have.
and
It would have.
this goes to something that's one of my theories. And when I'm building this program, or when I built this program, is that you losing weight doesn't fix these emotional issues.
Mm-mm.
Fixing
In
the
fact, it
emotional
might make them
issues,
worse.
right? Tell me, well, what do you, how so? Tell me about that.
Well, I think when you when you start to lose weight, again, like you said, it's that magical thinking life is going to be perfect, and you think that all of that lifetime of pain and hurt feelings and shame and not being good enough, like that's all going to disappear with the weight, and it's not true. That's all still there. And I think it's worse because you expect it to be gone,
Mm,
right? It's
mm,
such a surprise when it
mm.
crops back up, when something hits you a certain way. And now if it does, I'm just like, yep, there's that thing. There you go. And it's almost like I have to take that Buddhist approach to just sort of be the watcher
Yeah.
and just see it, and then just let it go be with the world, because it's not mine. I don't need to take that on anymore. I don't need to take on anybody's stuff. um yeah,
Yeah.
it's just so
Hey,
much
we
easier to let it go.
absolutely. Look, there's, if you walk around as I call it the walking wounded. I don't think I've coined that term, but I'm going to use it, which all of us are to some extent or another, and
Sure.
it's our responsibilities, I think, to deal with that. And that's why I've got it in the program. Now, I'm not a therapist, and I make it clear that if you need to go to therapy, please go do that. But there are certainly exercises that you can bring up to work through and look at some of these issues on your own. Not everything has to be handled in therapy. And these are proven strategies, most of which I didn't really come up with, but assembled, I think, is probably a better, a better term. Um, we forgot to talk about how much weight you've lost. I think that would be really still of interest. We've talked about the fact that I don't like before and after pictures because I think they're
Right.
shaming. So, and I still feel that way. I don't like the idea of judging bodies where this is a good body and that is a bad body. No,
Right.
there is a healthy person who is handling their life in a way that honors themselves and lives a physically and emotionally healthy life. And then there is a life that is out of balance. And usually weight is an extension of a healthy life. But having said that, it would still be nice to know how much weight you've lost.
So as of this morning, I have lost 41 pounds.
Woo! That's incredible.
Yeah.
Tell me how you're feeling. Tell me about what your day looks like and how you feel about your life and yourself in general.
Um, so so this is funny. So again, always having been very active and very athletic, um, I've always really loved being strong. Um, and actually, I read an interesting article by a woman who talked about one of the things she missed when she lost weight was just the strength that you have from being in a larger body. I mean, she could manhandle the couch, whatever.
Mm, hmm.
And I thought, oh, you should have gone to the gym. You
Yeah, she needs
you
to
should
lift
have gone to the
weights.
gym more.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm much stronger today for sure.
Yeah. So I feel so physically strong. Um, I have I have such good energy. I can chug up the hills. I live in Seattle, and we are a city of nothing but hills. And it's a half a mile of walking up to get to the grocery store. And I can do that, you know, and barely huff and puff. Like it's just almost nothing. It's not walking on the flat, obviously, but when I first started, which was in December, which was before the actual program, and had decided, like, okay, girl, you got to do something. I could barely make it up one block without having to stop and catch my breath, which was horrifying to me.
Yeah, I bet.
And so now it's like it really is just nothing. I play pickleball and I'm so much faster now. Like I was a decent player before, but I am so lightning fast and people are constantly surprised. People say to me, even people who know me will say, wow, I don't know how you got that. I don't know how you got that shot, you know. Um, and then the other thing is, this is really funny. I was talking to my best friend about this. I because the layer of fat has diminished, I can, and because I've been working out and doing things too, but I can see muscles. I can see the lines in my muscles. And I am in love with my body. I am so enamored of my muscles right now. I am constantly just like feeling my leg.
I love it. Why shouldn't
I
you
reach
be?
over and I'm like, yeah, I worked those hard. I like, it's so hilarious because I'm just enamored of myself. I am having such a good time with there's this narrative that runs through our culture, and we all know about ageism, and ageism towards women is way worse, of
Oh,
course, than it is
and
towards
as we get
men.
older, even more.
Yeah. So there's this idea that once you're past menopause, you're done, you're sunk. You can't drop weight, you can't get fit, you can't do anything. And of course that's not true. Um and so it's just so much fun to like I'm watching myself get stronger. I started back going to the gym and I'm lifting weights, and I am that person who I love to lift weights. Like the boot camp thing, no. I don't want somebody yelling at me to do push-ups. No, but I love going to the gym and I love picking up heavy things. And so I wouldn't have done that at the beginning. There's no way I would have walked into a gym when I first started this program. Um,
And
and
and it
that's
yeah, go ahead.
sad
Sorry.
that we feel
Yeah.
that way. But
Well, I think of it as being part of an evolution though. So correct, do you tell me how this is how I look at it in my own evolution. And then I think this is what I teach as part of the program. Be where you are.
yes,
Just be where you are. And if where you are is a person who needs to just create a durable practice, now you were a person who exercised already. But even with that, if you're going up a block uphill and struggling, then there's something happening or not happening there, right?
yeah,
And I think it's okay to be where you are. And it doesn't make sense to me when people a trainer will say, well, come meet me and I'll personal train you. But that's just asking for shame and pain. you're not starting where you are, you're starting where they want you to be. And
Yeah.
that is why there's so much recidivism. Like that's why and I did it too. I paid for personal training sessions. I remember I think I paid for personal training sessions 3 different times. And I thought, well, this is going to be the thing. But you know what the thing was? There was no thing. You and I know this. There's no thing, right? There is no thing. You know what finally just got me out on it. I think it's more important to develop a practice and stick to that practice than what the actual practice is, because
Yes.
that is what gets you to where you are. So I think you started in the same place I did, but mine was take a walk. Just
Yeah.
go walk. It's
Yeah.
easy, it's accessible,
Yeah.
it's judgment free. There's nobody in the gym to tell you or look at you sideways about whatever your body looks like. You can do what you like with it. You can make it go harder. You can make it go softer. And that people underestimate how powerful it is to take these small concepts and just do them regularly and then let the progress unfold.
Yeah.
So was that your experience as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started walking. Um, I have a dog who needs to walk, so that was great. He was happy. Um, and then once the walking felt better, then, I'd do some little light jogging in between for maybe a quarter of a mile or whatever, just to see like, okay, let's increase our endurance. It was never about like how many calories I can burn off. It was always about um I wanted to be fitter and I wanted to be stronger. And that's always been at least the majority behind any attempt I've ever made. Um, the last time I was at this weight, I was doing a mountaineering class.
Mm-hmm.
And
Wow.
I will say, yeah, go big or go home. Uh, and I actually had a personal trainer who was great. And whenever I would say anything about weight, he would always say, I don't care what you weigh. I want to improve your body composition and I want you to be stronger. That's our
Mm-hmm.
goal. So
Mm-hmm.
he was actually really great about that. Um, and so I did all this work. I really, really, really worked hard. And when we were doing our final testing to make sure that we could do all the skills so that we didn't fall down the mountain and drag everybody with us and kill us all, um, you have to hike up in the mountains in the snow with your crampons and your pack and the whole 9 yards. It's incredibly difficult. And I was a good 15 to 20 years or more older than everybody else doing this. And they were
Mm-hmm.
so kind to me and I could out climb them on rock. I was like a tree frog. But when it came to hiking, because I was heavier, I was already carrying more weight. Um, I was slower. I've never been a fast hiker, but they were great. Like my core group that we trained together, they were awesome. But this wasn't that. This was with other people and another instructor who I had never met. And as we were going, he said to me, um, you should really drop your weight. You should really drop some weight because you're slowing down the group and you could be a detriment to your group. Your being too slow could actually be detrimental. And I mean, who asked you? Who asked you anything? Like it was such the inappropriate time and setting, everything about it. And this guy was like, I mean, he's been mountain climbing his whole life. He was probably in his 60s, fit as a fiddle, very lean, very strong. But he literally like it just took the wind out of my sails.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure.
So
I mean, look, as we're going through this process and finding ourselves, the endless amount of people who maybe mean well, but actually are quite destructive is hugely long. one of the things that I try to do through this program is make you all a little more bulletproof to that sort of thing, where you can, if you have unraveled that stuff and then put yourself back together, it's a lot harder to wound you. You know what I mean? I want to ask you about something. So one of my theories about lasting weight loss, and some of it comes from science, as you know, I'm an avid reader, just like you, and some of it comes from my own personal experience over time. But the way I tried to build the program was that it was very multi-pronged. And the reason I wanted it to be that way is because I think you can't just handle food. You can't just handle self-talk. You can't just handle, boundaries in relationships. You can't just there's not one, there's no one thing. There's never going to be a one thing. What weight loss is 100 things. Now, I don't mean that to overwhelm anybody, because I tried to make it systematic, where, all right, we're going to deal with this for a little while. Let's get a handle on that. And let's move on to the next thing. And then obviously I intended, which you just like went on steroids about, is continuing your evolution, continuing that evolution. But what I think happened in the program was that I helped you handle those things and created a template by which the shame was mitigated, the anxiety is mitigated, so that you can continue learning. Was that your experience? Like, did you take the program in that way?
Yeah, that's actually that's a good way to put it. I feel like it offers a framework. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like building a house, tired analogy, but it's still true. If the foundation isn't solid, it doesn't matter how great the roof is. So if anybody who has lived in this culture being overweight has been shamed. Even if it's not direct, even if it's not personal, you
Yes.
see it online, you see it in films, you hear it in songs, it's everywhere. So you feel some of that, and you have to look at that, and you have to get that relationship with yourself, sort of situated. You have to work that out. And then you have to figure out, okay, well, what can I do that I'm willing to stick with? And if it's just walking, then doggone it, I'm going to be the best walker there is. And if you want to do other things, maybe you start out thinking, that's all I'll ever do. I'm not an outdoorsy person. I don't like exercise. So I'm just going to walk. And then maybe one day you see somebody riding a bicycle and you think, wow, I used to have such a great time on my bike as a kid. I wonder if I could still do that. I'm 60 years old. I ride my bike back and forth to work every day. I love to ride a bike. It's great. But I think there are people who think I'm too fat, I'll look silly, or I haven't done it in years. I don't know if I could do that, or I'm too old, or whatever self-talk, is there. So yeah, I think you take all of those things and you build this foundation that helps to support a good relationship with yourself, a good relationship with other people. I'm very fortunate. I don't have anybody tempting me in my life,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't, my people at work, they're like, yeah, no, she's not gonna, she doesn't want that, and they've all been very supportive. Um, so it is like that. It's kind of taking all the different bits and pieces and putting it together in a way that supports you making good choices for yourself.
Yeah. I want to talk about two more things before we wrap up, because I feel like you and I could talk all day, and still it wouldn't be enough. But um, so one of the things is to talk about menopause, because I think it's no accident that most of my members are women between the ages of 40 and 65. That's just where it's at, and
Yeah.
I kind of dig it. Like, honestly, I think that's one of the most abused and overlooked and underestimated and lied to segment of the population I can think of. Like, I can't think of anyone who is fed more bullshit in the idea of help than that group. And one of the things that I try to dismantle with all of this, and I want your help in this, is that you can't, I don't know if I'm in menopause or not. I just, but I'm for sure perimenopausal. And a lot of what you're told needs to be medicalized. Now, I'm not suggesting that somebody I am a science-based person. And if someone needs to go get medication, they should do that. Like, in no way am I talking anyone out of it. I'm more discussing the kinds of remedies that we spoke about earlier before this whole conversation, where women are constantly marketed to about hormonal imbalances, about all the things that happen. And my running theory about perimenopause and or menopause, I'm assuming you've gone through menopause, although if that feels too personal, you do not have to say.
No, it's yes.
But is that much of what I teach through this program will fix some of the issues that you are dealing with. It's not that I'm suggesting that diet and exercise fixes everything. I'm not. What I am saying, though, is that I don't, for example, when I am in alignment with myself, which is most of the time, I'll be honest, I'm pretty good about it at this point. A lot of the worst symptoms that women go online, they go on Instagram, they go and search out, are gone for me. I don't have big problems with hot flashes. I don't have a lot of these issues. I'm not dealing with crushing anxiety, for example. And I think part of that is my movement practice. Part of that is all of the emotional work. But what I think is that, I think it is absolutely possible to lose weight post 40. You are not in some kind of never land of existence where you have to put up with excess weight simply because of going through menopause. I think that it is over medicalized and understood. And also that much of what is taught in this program will help regulate you. Now, if there are things left over after that, please go get help, the right kind of help, the scientific kind of help. But if you go to the doctor and just get prescriptions, you don't necessarily have to make all these changes that are actually whole life betterment changes that will change you physically and make you and possibly control some of these issues. So I want to hear about your experience with that and what you think about what I have said.
So I actually went through menopause, I think pretty early. I was 48. It happened relatively quickly. I had 6 months of god awful wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning hot flashes. I would get them often in response to emotional situations. So if I was in a hurry and we were late for the movie and we're walking uphill, and then all of a sudden I would just stop and say, "No, we're going home. I'm not going anywhere like this. I'm miserable right now." Or at work, if if someone spoke inappropriately, there was a doctor one time in the ICU who I didn't even know. I didn't work in the ICU. I was there doing something else for a patient. He started yelling at me about something. It was so bizarre. And I didn't say anything. I just let him go on. And I finally said, I'm very sorry that I can't help you. I don't work in this department, but I'll get somebody who can help you. And my work partner was over there chuckling, and he said, "I wish you could have seen the red that was just coming up your neck and up your face." I was like, "Oh, I could feel it." But I was fortunate again, that lasted like 6 months, and then poof, it just kind of went away. When I was carrying more weight, because fat holds estrogen, fat produces estrogen.
Yep.
And so I would definitely have more symptoms when I had a little bit less fat on me. It was much better.
Yeah.
Once in a while, I will get those warm flashes, but they're rare and they're pretty minimal and they don't last long.
Yeah.
Um,
So and by
so
extension, you don't necessarily feel like, again, I'm not saying anyone should never go get medical help. I want to be really
yeah,
clear
no,
about this, but it makes more sense to handle your body and handle what you can on your own
yes,
and handle your emotions and your trauma
yes,
and all kinds of
yes,
things, right?
yes,
And then if you still need to go get help, go do it.
yes.
Uh,
Because
but tell me, yeah,
menopause is a natural process that women
right.
go through. It's not some terrible thing that's been inflicted on us
That's right.
by aliens. It's
That's
the
right.
way the body works. And yes, there are some rare times when additional hormone therapy is important, but for the most part, again, I work in gynecologic oncology, so this is an ongoing,
Mm,
thing with us. When we call surgical menopause in a woman, we take their ovaries out because either or we're preventing cancer, then sometimes we need to give them some hormones for a
hmm.
period of time. But the idea that women can retain their youth and their looks and all this, their sexuality, everything by giving them hormones, there's something a little bit unnatural about that. And there are studies out there where they stopped doing it because there were medical problems that came as a result of that. So
Hmm.
if somebody needs to go to a physician, a good qualified physician in that field, that's fine. But there's a lot of people out there selling, creams that will,
Ugh.
whatever. Like it's just the whole, it drives
It's
me a little
the
bit nuts.
it's a space filled with charlatans, is what it
It
is.
is.
And
But
my
it's also the narrative that, as you've talked about and we've talked about before, that you are only worthwhile if you still look youthful and you
that's
still
right.
are pretty and you are attractive to the opposite sex or same sex, whatever, that is your worth. um and it's just still, it's part of the big lie that women endure, that that's where your value is. From the
Absolutely.
time we're little girls are told they're cute, little boys are told they're smart.
That's right. That's right. And we internalize that and then spend the rest of our lives beating ourselves up. The other thing I want to say about menopause is that we're told how I resent the idea that and I have not found it to be the case, that it is so much harder to lose weight. What I think is more true is that it's a lot easier to gain weight.
Yeah,
I don't actually think it's that hard to lose weight, even in perimenopause or menopause, wherever I happen to be. It's probably TMI, but I had a hysterectomy, so I have no idea. You know what I mean? And I don't care. I feel fine. I feel great. Honestly, I'm really very, very happy. So I don't. It makes no difference to me if I'm at the before or after phase. You know what I
right.
mean? But that 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 we what I think is more accurate is that people have had bad habits and bad thinking and unrealized emotional issues for a lifetime. And then you get to perimenopause or menopause, and it is easier to gain weight. But you had those problems all along. They were.
Right.
This is just now. Now you're dealing with it in a more advanced stage. But it is not a problem that cannot be remedied
No,
by
not at all.
normal, everyday, uh, uh, by, sorry, I'm losing my train of thought, but like it is not a problem that needs a special remedy. It actually, you just need to dig in deeper on your good practices, which is a
Yes.
lot of what we do in not another diet, is focus on building practices. So
Right.
what do you think of that?
Um, so the interesting thing is that when men get into their 30s, their testosterone levels fall off dramatically, and they are much more inclined to gain weight. But
Hmm.
nobody talks about that. That's not a huge conversation that fills the airwaves, right?
No. And as a matter of
Um,
fact, you know what they've done that men have, this is a lesson for women. Men just, they rebranded themselves as having a dad bod, and
the
now
dad
that's
bod.
sexy. Right? No, I'm telling you, it's a thing. Like,
I know.
because I'm
It's
dating,
hilarious.
or at least I, here and there when I can stand it. But like they just say, well, I have a dad bod now. Like, wait, what? So there's so much less shame. This is what happens when you have less shame about your
Yeah,
body, but
exactly.
you're right.
Yeah, there's a joke out on, that I see periodically that's like, women will never be truly equal until they can walk around like a 65-year-old man who's 50 pounds overweight in a thong bikini. Like, we just like, men just, yeah, they don't care. So the thing that is true is that sarcopenia is real. So we do lose muscle. Like, after 30, 35, your muscle cells actually begin to die off. Thankfully, we have trillions of them. Okay. But you do have to make the ones you have bigger and stronger.
Hmm. Hmm.
And part of that is metabolism, of course, that, it's always good to have more muscle. The other part is because I'm so keen on health and age related health, and I want people to understand that um, our sense of proprioception, that awareness of where we are in time and space that our brain has, comes from communication with our muscle cells. So
Whoa.
the bigger your muscle cells, the more nerves your body grows to feed that system. And so just having more muscle gives you better balance, better
Oh my gosh.
awareness,
Yeah.
less likely to fall, and you have more padding to protect yourself when you do fall. Because muscle pads you. Fat doesn't pad you when you fall. Muscle pads you. I was doing something with a patient the other day, and one of those beds that raises and lowers in the room, I set it to lower, and then I went to do something else, and she said, I think that table is stuck. I had a stainless steel tray table, and it literally had stuck under the edge of the bed. And the bed was still coming down, and it was tilting. It was not a good moment. So I grabbed it to jerk it out from there, and it was very tight. It was wedged. And when I got it out, of course, the force of that, it kind of, I was all of a sudden sitting on my butt with my feet straight out in front of me like a cartoon character. And the table had fallen, made this horrible noise. And the poor patient, she wasn't somebody I knew well. And she said, oh my God, are you okay? And I said, I actually am fine. I promise I'm fine. And I thought, it didn't even hurt. It literally did not even hurt. I wasn't sore the next day. I mean, that is what having good muscle will do for you. It will protect you from the inevitable pitfalls of being a walking human. We fall down
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah. And that's right. I
Um,
mean, there's no big cure for being postmenopausal other than having very good self-care practices.
yeah,
Very, very good self-care.
yes,
And that's a lot of what we teach. So
yeah.
where have you taken so if not another diet gave you a solid framework, where do you think you've taken it since then? Like what did you build on top of that?
So I think we talked about this a little bit before. I started doing some intermittent fasting, some
Hmm.
some restricted feeding times, or eating times. Feeding sounds like you're
Yeah, it
feeding the
sounds like
lab
you're going,
rats.
which I'm sure you're
Yeah.
not doing. Yeah.
So for me, those are I like to call them soft boundaries.
Hmm.
So I have my breakfast at 10, and then I eat lunch, and maybe I have a snack in the afternoon. I come home. If I'm hungry, I have dinner. If I'm not, I don't. But I try to set my time to be finished eating by like 6 or 6:30 in the evening.
Hmm.
That works for me because of my schedule. For some people, maybe it doesn't work at all. Maybe other times work. Um, what I found, it did a couple of things. I have a little bit of a hiatal hernia, and by putting that sort of kibosh on late night eating, I don't have any more problems with heartburn or reflux or any of that kind of stuff.
So I do want to ask you about that though, because my theory with intermittent fasting, I think as it's practiced for most people, not for you, but for most people, it is disordered eating. It actually causes a rebound effect. And I think that the reason that you are able to do that successfully now is that you going through the program, there's a whole section on you have to understand your hunger. You have to stop and understand yourself. You have to get in touch with your own hunger and figure that out first. And I have not moved on to IF, mostly because I just don't need it. I think I'm happy where I am, like I don't need to take it any further. And maybe someday I will if I develop heartburn or some other issue crops up or whatever, But for now, like I easily maintain my weight without doing that. So I just don't. But what I am, and I'm about to write a piece on Medium about this, and what I'm trying to explain to people is that that's an advanced technique. It's being sold to people as the starting point.
Right, and it shouldn't be.
And it's not. It's not.
No.
You have a lot of work to do before you can even consider that, and it's correct in your life. Much like I don't want you to just go to a boot camp. You need to have a walking practice first. In this case, you need to understand your hunger and be able to have a correct dialogue with yourself about what being full actually looks like. So does that resonate with you?
Yeah, and again, I was more interested in doing it to help with, like set circadian rhythms, because I am not a morning person and I have a morning person job.
Yeah, gotcha.
So so there's some interesting research that's been done that talks about how you reset circadian rhythms with light and with movement and with eating, and those really work for me. It also, again, there are times when it's 8:00 at night and I'm like, nope, I'm hungry. I'm having some toast and peanut butter.
Right. So you're listening to your hunger. If your hunger breaks through and says, no, I'm hungry.
Yeah.
You're
if
not
it's
just
real hunger and not, that looks tasty hunger.
Sure. But the difference from having gone through Not Another Diet as opposed to just, because I think, I think the way a lot of people show up, certainly I did in the beginning of my own journey, is like, I didn't have any idea what the difference was.
I had no idea.
Right?
I didn't know what hunger felt like.
Yeah. Yes. And you've got to get in touch with that. You have to understand when you're hungry and when you're not hungry. And that is a foundational element. You can't build on more advanced eating techniques, IF, without understanding what the foundation of hunger actually means in your life, right?
Yeah.
All right. So Christi, you are, and by the way, we have a community forum in Not Another Diet, and Christi posts the most interesting YouTube videos, articles. Like she's always got something. Like I love it. I'm crazy. I love to, take in information, good information. And I know if Christi puts something in the community forum, it's going to be worth reading or watching. So I have one last question.
That you liked Professor Huberman.
Oh my God, so good.
Yeah,
so good.
I mean, great.
I already knew about the whole sugar thing. Christi is referencing a really great YouTube video, and part of the Not Another Diet program is to really understand what sugar is doing to your body and get it in check, and not in a keto kind of way, but in a let's look in your real life and figure out what what's actually happening with sugar. And so it was clear from the program, I already understood that those things were important, but she brought this video in with all the science behind it, and it was just fascinating. Absolutely. I mean, it would take too long to explain it here, but it was super good.
So good.
All right. So I have one last question for you. So if you were talking to someone who was at the beginnings, where you were at the beginning, and they're looking at Not Another Diet, and they're also saying, well, this other program is going to, this diet is promising me 20 pounds in the first month or whatever, whatever the claims are. I hardly even pay attention to them anymore. Or even frankly, programs where you put all your calories in an app. If you were going to talk to someone about what they were embarking on, what would you say about the choices ahead?
Well, again, more than anything, I love your idea that nothing that you can't sustain for the rest of your life is going to work long term. So if you need to drop 3 pounds for your cousin's wedding next week, then okay, I guess you could do something crazy. Although I still don't think that's really helpful, because we all know that yo-yo dieting isn't good and
Hmm.
weight cycling is not optimal. We lose muscle and put fat back on. So that's not a good idea. Um, but I think that most people, I would hope, want to lose weight and also find the underlying reasons why they ate out of sync to begin with. Like,
Mm.
don't you want to find out what's going on that will support you for the rest of your life, as opposed to just going on whatever diet is on a magazine at the checkout counter that's, that you're going to stay on for 2 weeks and then drop it.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah,
I used to
and
joke, my birthday is in January. My birthday is January 4th, which is a terrible time to have a birthday because everybody's broke and they're kind of partied out and they're done. And I would always say, I would say, oh, let's go out and have dinner. It's my birthday. And people, oh, no, I'm on my New Year's diet. And I would just laugh and say, you're going to screw it up anyway. Just come eat dinner with me. Like, it's going to last you what? Another week, another two at the most.
yeah, and that goes to the idea, like, most people understand that to lose weight and keep it off, we understand it intellectually, right?
Yeah.
Is that you have to do something for the duration. I think
Yeah.
people do understand that. What they don't understand is how to make that happen.
Yeah.
How do you make it happen for the duration? And it's not everybody's fault that they don't understand. There's a lot of horrible ideas out there, horrible ideas that we all struggle with, and then we feel like failures because we can't keep them up. But I think what I tried to build here, and what I did build, is something that addresses that. Like, this is how you make those things happen in your life on a regular basis. And then you carry that forward wherever it takes you, wherever it
Yeah.
confidently takes you, which for
Yeah.
you is being the queen, the pickleball queen of Seattle, and climbing up mountains. And I hope if you see that guy at REI, that guide who, my wish for you is to charge past him and be like, you are so slow. maybe if you were less old and less male, I don't know, you could
That
keep
would
up
be
or
hilarious.
whatever. Yeah, I would. Anyhow, listen, this has been a wonderful conversation. Christi, I just want to thank you for being so generous with your time and coming back and
Yeah.
talking to me. And I'm so proud of you. I just want to say that I'm so proud of
Thanks.
you. And it's just a beautiful thing to watch. It really is. And anyhow, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate it.